Hey, it's Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Today is November 3rd, which means we all want to know the answer to the question, what's staying and what's leaving in my collection? And that, by the way, is about as political as I'm willing to get on this channel, making a little wink and a nudge towards anything else, but really October has come and gone, which means it's time to figure out which games are leaving my collection. Anything else you want to know, there are other channels you can go to that, well, really, I just don't want to go there. But in any case, we're going to start with Welcome to the Dungeon. Both of these little games, there's going to be actually a decent amount of games going on today, but the Welcome to series of games is a series that I have actually gotten and gotten back and gotten rid of a few times. I think I got rid of it once and got it back, but at the end of the day, I really enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed this series of games. It's a light little kind of push your luck with a little bit of Scrooge where you're kind of pushing your opponents more than actual luck. You're slowly going to add things to the dungeon. I don't know how much you can really see on the back of this box here, but you're slowly going to add things to the dungeon and or take away equipment from your adventurers, resulting in a little dungeon that you have to go through, but you don't know if you are well equipped enough to go through it. And every turn, someone's going to either add something to the dungeon, a monster that you have to defeat, or remove a piece of the adventurer's equipment. And then at any point you can pass, which means the next person might be the person who's forced to enter the dungeon, but ultimately you have to enter the dungeon to win, but you want to do so when you actually think you can win. It's this fascinating little push your luck Scrooge game where you're trying to either set the dungeon up to be defeatable where you can win it, or push it so that you can walk away, you can back out, and other people are going to be forced to enter it. I really enjoy the game and what it has to offer. It has been in my collection for a while. Like I said, I already got rid of it and got it back once. At the end of the day, I find myself not really pulling it out anymore. There's not a ton of variability to the gameplay, and it's one that I kind of like pulling out here and there, but I find that there are other fillers I tend to go to. But this has been in my collection for a few years now, and I've gotten lots of plays out of it, so I can highly recommend this one. Give it a shot. For me, I think I've just moved on from where it's up to, but it is a great game. Next up from there, we have the Blinks games. Now, I actually am running a giveaway, or by the time you see this, I've ran a giveaway for the series of Blinks, but basically this is a cute little game the publisher reached out to, had me try it or whatnot. I talked about it on the channel briefly. It's not really something that's for the channel in terms of it's not a typical game, and so I didn't really feel there's much to review here, at least not for, I guess, my audience or who I perceive you all to be. This is a cute, light little game. I do recommend trying it out if you have an opportunity. I can totally see this being a cute little thing that people pull out. It's an electronic little gizmo that each of these Blinks comes with its own game that you can load to other games, and then you can click them together and have little game systems that all learn and teach one another. I kind of compare it to having a deck of cards, but unfortunately more expensive than a deck of cards, meaning it's a single system that can then be used for other things. I think it's very interesting, meaning I'm not saying it's good. It's hard to gauge this because it's not a board game. I think it's interesting. I had fun playing some of the little games, but it's kind of, I don't play with decks of cards either, meaning I kind of like define structural board games for the same reason that I don't feel the need to keep these is the same reason why I don't feel the need to have a deck of cards. It's just not the kind of game system that I'm looking for. From there we have Illusion, which I recently covered in one of my small box game reviews. I did a series of 5 small box game reviews in one video. This is going to have a bunch of cards on the back where you're trying to figure out the various proportions of which color is on which. So you're making these guesses about, well, I think that, red's the most frequent, then blue, then yellow, then green, and then you're trying to see if you're right or not. And other players can say, no, I think you're wrong, and then overtake your guess. It's a very fun little game. It is fun. Like Welcome to the Dungeon, I just think it's something I've played out. There's only so many plays I can get out of it before I feel that was great. Now I'm really not in the mood of going back to it. I think it was fun. I think it's a cute little party trick. It's just not one that I feel the desire to pull off the shelf, and so it is sadly going away. In contrast to Welcome to the Dungeon, this kind of didn't last me as long. It lasted me maybe a few months, as opposed to Welcome to the Dungeon lasted me years. From there we have Allegory, which is an interesting conversation about what I'm going to do with Kickstarter preview copies that I am not keeping in my collection, because I think this might be the first one I'm officially featuring. I think there are others I've gotten rid of and not. Basically, I guess it's hard to know really where I end up on these in terms of if it's a game I'm not really keeping, but I never really got, and it was for a review, is it leaving my collection? I don't know. I'll wrestle with that problem later, but today I'm going to include Allegory. Allegory. I keep saying Allegory. Allegory. So this is a game that I did a full review on it. It effectively has a light little bidding mechanism It's the kind of light filler game that I do tend to enjoy, and in fact, in this series of games, there were multiple other games in this series that I very much am keeping and thoroughly enjoyed and totally want in my collection. For me, Allegory was Allegory. Jeez. Allegory was one that I thought the bidding mechanism was interesting. I didn't appreciate the scoring and how it felt like they had a good, simple mechanic that worked well, and then kind of needed to add things to make the game just a little bit more nuanced, but those additions didn't really add much for me. I can totally see someone enjoying it. It was fine. I wouldn't turn down a game. I also don't feel the need to own this one when compared to other fillers in my collection. And that is Allegory. You see, I can do it right if I think about it. Next up, we have Coffee Roaster. Coffee Roaster is one that I loved. I loved this game when I first got it. I played it, I don't know, 15, 20 times. I played it a lot. I don't know how many times I played it. I played it a lot. I got a lot of games, and I kept frequently trying to rebrew my coffee. This is one where you're going to, let me see if I can move this over here. You're going to be trying to build the perfect cup of coffee throughout the game. It's effectively bag building, but it's a solo game where you're solo building your own bag of coffee and trying to roast it to the perfect level. I really appreciate the challenge it brings to the table. I really appreciate the nuance of trying to figure out which ability tokens to use to either trade things in or upgrade them or use it for an ability or use it for the ability token on the ability itself. And then how many rounds of brewing to go through. Do you risk the fact that if you continue brewing too long, you're going to have to add burnt beans to your pot? There's so many intricate decisions to be made as you figure out how to roast the perfect cup of coffee, and then that's it. And then after that, there's not much else to add to the table, meaning this is one that I feel might do well with an expansion, although I don't really know what an expansion will consist of. I just feel that similar to some of the other games we've already talked about, this is one that I have played out. I just no longer feel the desire to pull it off the shelf. I feel like I've done what the game is doing. I've gotten to a reasonable point into how decently I can brew my coffee, and I've stopped feeling like the decisions are that different. I've stopped feeling like there's enough intricate decisions making the game different every time. Rather, it's the same exercise in how I'm going to try to brew the optimal cup of coffee. I do highly recommend checking it out, especially if you are a solo gamer. This one gets rave reviews across the board. For me, it still gets rave reviews, just rave reviews that I am now willing to move on from. Next up, we have A Few Acres of Snow. A Few Acres of Snow is a Martin Wallace design that I'm not going to bother showing the back because there's nothing really on the back. This is a deck building game with a board, before deck building games with the board were cool. Martin Wallace is one of my favorite designers. Anytime you slap his name on a box, I am paying attention. Not always getting it, but always paying attention. And this is one of my first, possibly my first Martin Wallace game. This was a game I played, I want to say in my first year of gaming, and I exhausted my plays of this game. I must have had 30, 40 plays under my belt, both in person on yukata.de. I have enjoyed this game immensely and continuously played it and played it and played it. And then one day I eventually got rid of it a few years ago, maybe 3, 4 years ago, because I felt that I had played it so much that when I played it against new people, I tended to win the game pretty harshly. And when I played it against the people who I used to play it against, who knew the game as well as I did, they weren't people who were around anymore. They had moved away or whatnot, and so it just didn't have a fit in my collection. After a few years went by, I decided to get it back. Maybe I hadn't played it in so long that it would be a better game in terms of being able to, I guess, take off that strategic knowledge of do this, then that, counter the strategy with that. But ultimately, my subsequent plays since getting it back have felt a little bit lacking. Still a solid game, still an incredible game system, still one I recommend. It's 2-player game, tactical maneuvering, multiple strategies in terms of, I said tactical maneuvering, that might sound wrong. Multiple strategies in terms of how you win, whether you're going for more of a raid victory, whether you focus on the economic to build up your troops or whatnot, whether you focus on military, multiple different nuanced strategies in how you're going to counter each other in the game. For me, the reason I'm getting rid of it is I have found since then that the mid-game, and it could be I'm playing it wrong, that's fine, I don't know, I don't care, the mid-game often feels a bit more stale and drawn out than I would like. It has a solid beginning to the game, and I love how it plays out, but then it tends to devolve a bit to a slower mid-game that takes more time than it is rewarding. Or in other words, where I ended up on A Few Acres of Snow is I think it's an incredible game. I have played it at least 40 times, but I also think that since I've gotten rid of it, I have continuously discovered newer games that maybe tweak small imperfections about how a game plays out that I feel more incentivized to keep in my collection. From there we have Guards of Atlantis tabletop MOBA. Now, if you're saying, don't you love this game? The answer is a firm yes, I do love this game. Maybe I can show you the back on this one. It's not much to see here. I don't know. Lots of games have different things going on. Our Guards of Atlantis tabletop MOBA, I did a play this, not that, with Rum and Bones versus Guards of Atlantis tabletop MOBA. I know I have seen comments from people asking me to do more play this, not that videos. It's something I definitely want to do. It's harder. I feel that style of video tends to be harder to do well unless I'm doing a lot of B-roll or whatnot. I can't just set up a game on the table because there's 2 games, and then I have to figure out the best way. Basically, my lack of being willing to edit prevents me from being able to do that series justice. I may still do them. I have to figure out how to do them, but in any case, Play This Not That is a series where I compare 2 games and basically tell you why I pick one over the other. Sometimes I do have both, but I still think one is a better game. In this case, I compared it to Rum and Bones, which I have both. I ultimately picked Rum and Bones, but it was very close because they had both different pros and cons. This is a MOBA style game, a game where you're going to have heroes with abilities and powers, and then you're going to have minis or whatnot, little minions that you have to slowly try to slaughter or kill to advance your cause or whatnot. I use the word slaughter a lot in my videos. It might be a little too aggressive. I should probably see someone about that. But in any case, this is a game that I thoroughly love. I thoroughly recommend, and I'm getting rid of it because they had a new Kickstarter that I went all in on because I love this game, and the new Kickstarter added new stuff. I do recommend checking out the new Kickstarter. I should have done it before starting this video, but there may still be a late pledge option. I recommend checking the game out. I think it is an incredible experience. It is surprisingly accessible, plays in around an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours your first play. Not that hard to teach. The rule book in here is like 7 pages, and very simple 7 pages at that. It's a little bit not intuitive, I would say, in terms of the way things are done. But read those 7 pages, get your first play in, and then you'll be like, wow, that's fun. I want to do this again. I want to try different tech trees as I level up my characters. I want to pick different characters. I want to try to counter your character. The original game had some balance issues. Not an incredible problem. I mean, I love the game despite the balance issues. But for me, there's a reason I went all in on the second Kickstarter. And I'm getting rid of this one now just because I like to get rid of games before the new one comes so I can still trade this or sell this while people still want the game that they can actually play. Next up, we have Dominations, which I guess by the time you're watching this video, if I stick to my schedule, you're probably going to see a Dominations review this coming Saturday. Maybe some other future Saturday, but Dominations, I'll be doing a full review on this one. Effectively, Dominations is one that I really want to like more than I actually do. This is a game in which it is a light civ building game, meaning it's an abstracted civ game. It's not a civ game in which you have really the troops on the map and tech trees and all these other things like Clash of Cultures, Sid Meier's, or even like Through the Ages, which is technically an abstracted civ game, but that one you should play. Dominations is a lighter civ building, much more abstracted, and unfortunately the reason I'm getting rid of this one is, at least for myself, and I should say for others as well. I checked online to make sure we weren't doing things wrong, but for myself and for others, it is attempting to be a lighter abstracted civ game, but it comes with the playtime of Through the Ages, and at that point I'd rather just play Through the Ages. This is a game where even at 3 players, was it 3 players? I'm pretty sure it's 3 players. Even at a 3-player game, I think it was 3 players. Even at a 3-player game, we took roughly 3.5 hours to play this game for our first play. I'm sure we can get it down, but it just didn't feel, while I liked the game mechanisms, while I liked the building of your trees, while I liked I love the tech cards and the interplay between different things, there are many small aspects to the game that I wish had either been better or more specifically not as long. In terms of this game, it had the meaningful decisions that come along with a 90-minute game or a 2-hour game at best, and the playtime of a 3.5, 4-hour game, which for me was just not a combination I like. It's a game that I am sad to get rid of. I'm sad about all the expansions I will never get to play now. It's a game that I'm sad to get rid of it. Sometimes when I get rid of a game, it's because I didn't like it. Other times, it's because it's more nuanced than that. This one is more nuanced. I like the game. I'm sad about all the potential future promises that I will never get to explore, but I'm also not willing to give it the time that it takes to explore. From there, we have Pipeline. Now, both Pipeline and Dominations were in a video series that I did about games that I really want to get to the table. So far, I'm 0 for 2 on keeping those games because of the 2 I've tried in that 10 game list, so far I've kept none of them. Pipeline is another one this one is an incredible game. But unlike Dominations, where Dominations is one that I feel is a not as good game that I really want to play. It's a good game, but it's one that I just felt is too long. Pipeline, I think, is an incredible game that I have no interest in playing ever again. I've played this one twice. I put up a review on it that went up last Saturday, or whenever you're watching this, I don't know. And it is an incredibly well-designed game. It has gorgeous art, gorgeous production values, well tweaked, well-designed, and I have no interest in playing. You can watch my full review, but effectively what it comes down to is this has the crunchiness, the brain burnerness, the optimization of a game like Food Chain Magnate, but without the player interaction of a game like Food Chain Magnate. For myself, if you're going to give me the level of thinkiness of where I'm sitting there trying to min-max every little decision to get the most out of it, I usually want interaction, player interaction, to be a part of that structure. I like lighter Euros where I have to think through and there's less interaction, like Everdell or Endless Winter is another good example. Those games when there's less interaction I don't mind because I'm not number crunching every little thing to make it work. If you want to make me think that hard, then speaking for myself, I want the player interaction that comes with it. It's just a personal preference in the things that I like or don't like. If someone told me, I said this in my review, but if someone told me that Pipeline was their favorite game of all time, I would have no problem believing it. This is incredibly well designed, just too high a ratio of thinkiness to player interaction for my own personal taste. Next up, we have Arkham Horror. Arkham Horror is one that I am also sad to get rid of. There's a bunch here that I'm sad to get rid of, but it is what it is. Arkham Horror, the card game, is one that I'm sad to get rid of, but I have found that I really like Marvel Champions and I really like Arkham Horror, the card game. The mental process of keeping up with the campaign nature of Arkham Horror, the card game, in comparison to the way I play games and in comparison to the style of campaign games that I'd rather get to the table. I would rather get a game like Gloomhaven to the table, like Arena the Contest to the table, than Arkham Horror, the card game. For myself, as much as I enjoy the gameplay in Arkham Horror, as much as I like what it is offering, as much as I think it's probably a better game than Marvel Champions, for myself, Marvel Champions is a better fit for my collection, for my playstyle, because of the fact that it's more one-shot adventure-driven than campaign-driven and whatnot. And so, I like Arkham Horror. There's a potential day down the road where I return to Arkham Horror. I don't know what that would take. It might require getting rid of more games or just retiring or something. I don't know what it takes. But I like it. It's not getting played. It's just sitting on my shelf, staring at me, making me feel guilty because I'm not playing it. Now, Marvel Champions, on the other hand, I actually have not pulled that out in too long, partially because of Arkham Horror. Once I kind of put them in this mental mind space where I wasn't playing them because of Arkham Horror, I need to pull Marvel Champions off the shelf, build another deck. I've gotten Doctor Strange, I've gotten Black Widow. I need to build some more decks and have a go at that game. Next up, we're running out of space here. Next up, we have Alhambra, the big box. Now, this one, sadly, because of the storage nature of it, I will not be turning on its side because, well, everything would fall out. That's the nature of the insert they have here. But Alhambra, the big box, I think this is the second time this is making an appearance in this list. And in fact, the next game, the last game, is also the second time it's making an appearance on this list. And Alhambra Big Box is one that I have had for years. I have had this one, well, I got rid of it once, but then, not counting the part where I got rid of it, I have had this game since my first year in gaming. I have gotten many amazing plays out of it. I have enjoyed it every single time I played it. And then I got rid of it because I realized over time that as much as I enjoyed it, I wasn't pulling it off the shelf, and no one was asking for it to be pulled off the shelf. And then I got it back. And I played it because now I had it back. It was time to give it a go to see if it was for us. And I still enjoyed my play and I resolved to keep it. And then no one asked to pull it off the shelf. This is one that I like. I enjoy it. I think that it's a good game, but nobody, not myself, nor anyone in my game group or my family or whoever, ever asks to play it. And that is a death blow for a game for me. It doesn't matter how good a game is. Somebody has to want to play it for a reason other than checking it off a list. It has to be something that you look at the shelf and you're like, I want to play something. Alhambra, let's play Alhambra. I'm in the mood for Alhambra. That never happens anymore for some reason, despite the fact that when we do play it, we like it. I can heartily recommend it. I think it's an excellent gateway game. I would argue it's potentially gateway plus, especially once you add expansions. There's enough extra stuff in there that it's a thoroughly enjoyable experience. It's all about building out your little Alhambra. You're drawing tiles, you're drawing cards, you're drawing tiles, you're trading in the cards for tiles. All these expansions mix things up. Really, really works well, thoroughly enjoyable, and not getting played. Which brings us to the last game on the list, and the last time I got rid of this game, it was because I hadn't played it, and that is Dinosaur Island. So Dinosaur Island I got rid of in one of my very first collection updates. It might have been my first or even my second that I ever did on this channel, but effectively Dinosaur Island, last time I got rid of it was because I had gotten it because of all the great ratings, and then I had seen it, and I had no interest in it. The art style, the theme, the coloring, the day-glow 1970s vibe does not appeal to me at all, and so I just found myself having no interest in playing it, and I got rid of it. Then we saw Dinosaur World come out, and because Dinosaur World was coming out, the Kickstarter recently, I was like, well, I have to play Dinosaur Island to see if the game is for me, so I got Dinosaur Island back to give it a shot. I tried it, I set up on my table. Unfortunately, I only got to actually play it after the Kickstarter had ended, and I played it. And I liked it. I did. I thought it was pretty good. I'm not keeping it, which I'll explain in a second, but effectively let's see if we can show the back of this one. This is a worker placement tableau building game in which you're going to be slowly upgrading your park through a variety of ways, through the employees you gather, for the locations you have in your park, for the DNA you're going to gather and turn into different dinosaurs. You're constantly gauging the excitement of your visitors and trying to get more visitors through that excitement, and then get more points and more money in an ever upgrading chain of worker placement / you have worker placement on a general common board, is worker placement on a personal board. Lots of fun stuff happening. Mostly what it comes down to is upgrading to build out your unique special park that can magically figure out how to bridge all those different aspects and end up with a park that wins. I enjoy the system it is giving me. I still have zero interest in the art style, and I would say I don't love it, but I really like it. And I am happy that I backed Dinosaur World. I did back Dinosaur World, in case you're wondering. That will probably be covered in another video shortly. But I'm happy that I backed Dinosaur World because I like this one enough that I think you combine that with I'll see how Dinosaur World is gameplay-wise, but combine it with a better artwork style that is less of a turn-off, and I would say this is genuinely a turn-off for me. It's not even that I'm not pulled in by it. I am literally turned off by the 70s Dayglow vibe of this game. But if you combine that with Dinosaur World, which has a art style that is significantly more appealing to me, and I don't know what gameplay changes they made, but they could be better, worse, different, I don't know. But I am very intrigued by Dinosaur World, and I am optimistic that that one might find a more lasting spot in my collection than the one play that Dinosaur Island got. And that is October. Everything in October that is coming, going, that's not true. Everything in October that is leaving my collection, because that's all this video is this is the games leaving my collection for October 2020. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and I hope you have a good one.